Sometimes it could be that we have to approach it because we have to finish some milestones in our devotional service. Everyone's reading Bhagavatam, so I have to read Bhagavatam. Everyone says they have finished first canto, I have not read first canto. So it becomes, something like that. Or sometimes we lament and we think, why is it, that in my lifetime I have to finish Bhagavatam? It's not that I want to value Bhagavatam, but it is that, oh Prabhu. It is not that we don't want to value, we want to study it. But there's a difference. If you want to study, then we have to value it. And we must always remember, the best way, personally I found, to value Srimad Bhagavatam is to never forget that Bhagavatam is actually Srila Prabhupada's hard labor. That's why we always say, if you want to study Bhagavatam, please study Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. Literally we say it that way. Because what Prabhupada gave us is actually the essence of Bhagavatam. Prabhupada took all the commentaries of the previous acharyas, he distilled them, he got everything without any compromise. And he placed them just in the perfect line of Guru Parampara. And then he presented it to the masses. And we are part of that recipient. So we are immensely grateful to Srila Prabhupada. And therefore we should never forget that the more you value something, even in normal life, you will actually do well in something when you value it. Isn't it true? If you don't have value to it, then no matter what you do, you'll always just do it. But it will never touch your heart. It will not stay with you. So this is the first point that we should remember. That Srila Prabhupada gave us Bhagavatam as a fruit of his very hard labor. And he didn't ask for much at all. He just wanted us to study, become serious, and go back home, back to Godhead. And as Prabhu nicely pointed out, not just by holding his dhoti. That is an exception. What a nice point it is. Otherwise everyone says, Prabhu, mercy is just falling and I'm not moving. But that's because we are not following the process. That's why we are not moving, you see. So there's a large difference between being sentimentally attached to devotional service and taking up the process. The process is scientific. And when we take up the process, then actually the whole process will bring us to the point where Srila Prabhupada wants us to be. Next slide, Prabhu. This is a very wonderful excerpt from Srila Prabhupada's class. It was a class on 291. It was in 1972, 20th of April. I'll share the slides with everyone, so then everybody will get it. Prabhu, I'll share the slide with you also. It'll be nice. Just see what he's speaking on Bhagavatam. It's really relishable. Prabhupada says, practice it. This was in Tokyo. So it's a portion where he's speaking about Bhagavatam. Practice it. In this way, you practice one mantra daily. Each mantra will purify you 100 yards daily. Go forward. These mantras are very powerful, given by Vyasadeva Goswami, vibrated, and spoken by Shukamukha Drava Samyukta Amritam. That is explained in the beginning. Just like a ripened fruit in the tree is already very sweet, and if it is touched by the beak of the parrot, it becomes sweeter. So now Prabhupada goes deeper. So we should try to learn. Get it by heart. At least one shloka. 2 shlokas in a week. See how Prabhupada is practical. 2 shlokas in a week. And if we chant that, just like you're chanting so many songs, similarly, if we chant 1 or 2 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, that will make you very quickly advance for spiritual realization. So Prabhupada he's speaking about chanting the verses. Sometimes when we talk about studying, we forget to chant. And chanting is so important. Prabhupada goes on. We are therefore taking so much trouble to get this transliteration. Prabhupada is speaking about transliteration now. So not only the translation, but the word-to-word synonyms, which sometimes in our rush, we could very quickly rush through and not look at it. So Prabhupada says we are taking so much trouble to get this transliteration, the meaning, so that the reader may take advanced step, full advantage of the mantra. It is not that to show some scholarship, that I know so much Sanskrit. No, it is just offered with humility to learn the mantra, because one who will chant the mantra, they are all transcendental vibration. Just Hare Krishna mantra. This is Maha Mantra. But there are also mantras. All the verses from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Krishna, spoken by Bhagavata also, spoken by Krishna. Vyasadeva is incarnation of Krishna. They are also mantras, infallible instructions. So actually Srimad Bhagavatam are actually a collection of infallible instructions. And this is exactly what Prabhu was telling us. He gave the example of an axiomatic phrase, right, which is actually a statement of faith, very elaborate and sophisticated, but it will never come to the level of something which is infallible, because it will always be fallible because it can never be proven and it's never truth. But Prabhupada is telling us every mantra of Srimad Bhagavatam is infallible, and it is also an instruction. So Prabhupada says, so try to get it by heart, chanting. Either you chant by seeing the book or get it by heart. It's all the same. But try to chant 1, 2 shlokas daily, chant. See how many times Prabhupada is saying that. Next slide, Prabhu. Go on, one after the other. Now Prabhupada is getting devotees to chant, and he's correcting them. You read the transliteration. He's coming back again to that point. The thing is hearing the meter and repeat. That's all. The writing is already there, transliteration. Simply you have to hear the written. Just like you have chanted so many verses, songs by hearing, the hearing is very important. That's why we chant. Sometimes when we study Bhagavatam, it's very silent. We don't chant, but we don't realize. Prabhupada is saying, a child learns another language simply by hearing, pronunciation, hearing. That is natural. If we hear one thing repeatedly, you will learn. You will learn. So one has to hear little attentively. Then it will be easy. There is no difficulty. Just like you're singing our songs in tune. Samsara Dhava, Nananita Loka. This is by hearing. So simply you have to hear. Therefore whole Vedic Shastra is called Shruti. It is a process of hearing. Now Prabhupada is ending. So you have to study like that. So many shlokas. I'm taking so much labor. If you do not read it carefully, it is not for that I'm making business, for selling only, and not for my students. You must all read this, practice. Therefore Bhagavatam is for everyone. And notice what Prabhupada says. You must all read this. Then he says practice. Whatever that we read, we have to practice. And then he says, why so much trouble is being taken? Word to word meaning, and then transliteration. If you chant this mantra, that vibration will cleanse the atmosphere. And wherever you go, in any part of the world, if you can chant this mantra, oh, you'll be received like God. That's like a sweetener Prabhupada throws at the end, just in case somebody wants to feel that. But the point is, as Prabhu started, he made a very important distinction, that sometimes devotees think, in this day and age, that when we talk about chanting, it's only chanting the holy name. But factually speaking, Prabhupada has made it very clear. Prabhupada quoted very beautiful verses that chanting also definitely means Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is not different from Krishna. Not different from Krishna. One thing I would like to highlight to everyone is the importance of the word-to-word meaning that we have. Srila Prabhupada, every verse, he diligently and with so much effort, he got into this. Let me give you one example. And from this example, you will realize how important it is not to leave out the word to word when you are studying Bhagavatam. Look at this example. 284. Shranavataha Shraddhaya Nityam Pranatascha Swachestitam Kalena na atidirgena Bhagavan Vishate Vriddhi. Now, supposing we have chanted the verse, the next thing we should do is look at the synonyms, word to word. Shranavataha means of those who hear. Look at Shraddhaya. I've bolded it in a different color. Shraddhaya means in earnestness. Prabhupada translates Shraddhaya in earnestness. Shraddhaya's root is actually Shraddha, and Shraddha means with faith. Nityam, look at how Prabhupada translates Nityam. Regularly, and then comma, he puts always. Because if you say I'm chanting once a year, that's very regular. You can say on 1st of January, I'm always chanting Bhagavatam. 2nd January, I don't chant, but you don't say that, of course. You just say I'm very regular in my chanting program. Just once a year I do it. So Prabhupada puts regularly, but he knows us, right? So after that, he puts a comma and he puts always. That means always you have to do this. Regular and always. Nitya. Then look at the other word that's bolded in yellow. Swachestitam. Swachestitam means seriously by one's own endeavor. Okay? Now just keep that in mind. So what we should do is, we should first chant the verse. Then we should carefully look at the word to word. It won't take long. Just carefully look at them. Then go to the translation. Now you look at the translation. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. Why is the word to word important here? Because if you only read the translation, you will see Prabhupada has written persons who hear Bhagavatam and they hear it regularly. But if you don't read the word Shraddhaya, you will not understand how to hear. Here Prabhupada is saying persons who hear. But if you have read the word to word, you will understand hearing means to hear with earnestness. Now it's different, isn't it? If you hear something with earnestness, that means you must be attentive, you must be eager, you must be enthusiastic. So that helps us to create it makes us understand the word here so much more deeper. Otherwise, the mind is very quick to find the way out, isn't it? Then see, and are always taking the matter very seriously. Where is that coming from? Swachestitam. And Granataha, right? Taking the matter, cha also, Swachestitam. Seriously, but now Prabhupada has 3-4 other words. By one's own endeavor. So if you read the word translation, you'll find Prabhupada says, taking the matter very seriously. What happens if you have read the word to word? You'll be able to explain to yourself as you read it, this seriousness means that I should do this with my own endeavor. That's why the word swachestitam is there. And Prabhupada says, one's own endeavor. There is no. Then we must hear it regularly. Regularly means? Always, right? It cannot be just, here Prabhupada's lecture just now, he was saying every day we should be doing it. And then how should this be done? It should be done by doing it seriously. We take the matter seriously, but we are not getting other people to study and tell us what to do. In other words, you have to put in your own endeavor. And then what will happen? The result of all that is in the last line. It will be Kalena Nati Riddhivena, last 2 lines. In no time at all, Bhagavan Vishade Riddhi, Krishna will appear in our hearts. So this is an illustration of how when we miss the word-to-word translations, we miss so much of what Prabhupada is trying to convey. So this is very important. Prabhupada wanted us to study word-to-word. You heard it in the lecture. He used the word-to-word many times. Therefore, we should do that. Some devotees will come and say, but Prabhu, if that happens, I'm slowing down the advancement of my study of Bhagavatam by 2-3 days already. I know, I can see it on your face. Many of you will ask that question. But what was Prabhupada's point in the lecture? Prabhupada's point in the lecture is you take 1-2 shlokas a week. He's not even rushing you. Why? Because this is not a race to the end. It is not a material thing where I tick off a checklist. Have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done that? Certificates are useful, but certificates don't give value to how we behave. Certificates give us what we have done maybe, but the rest of it all comes down to how we study, how we value, and how we assimilate, and eventually how we practice. That is very important. So this is one example. Let's take another one. Now look at the purport. So I've done a sample. Read the shloka and chant it loudly. Don't be afraid to chant it loudly. Because when you are chanting loudly, you are hearing and we are being purified. Just like chanting one mantra. Sometimes devotees chant so silently, right, that the mind is just going everywhere. You can't even hear them chanting. It's very dangerous for the mind. So same thing when we study. We must chant them loudly. Of course, you don't have to scream and everybody wakes up if they're doing in the morning, but chant it so that you can hear. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole purport. But I'm going to just share with you that when we study Srila Prabhupada's purport, we must never forget, as Prabhupada said, his purports are his ecstasies. Right? They are the cream of what Prabhupada is distilling and giving to us. Whenever we study Srila Prabhupada's purport, the purport will always give us the right perspective of the verse. Superficially, we may think, the verse is saying one thing, Prabhupada is saying something else. Sometimes we may think, the verse is talking about something and Prabhupada is going into his pet talk about Mayavadis. We see that a lot. But when we study the verse carefully and we study the purport, there is a reason why Prabhupada is giving emphasis. In this purport, all Prabhupada is saying is, you cannot approach Bhagavatam from a professional angle. Remember what Prabhupada was saying just now? You cannot be a materialistic devotee of the Lord and try to approach Bhagavatam. If you want to hear Bhagavatam, hear it from those who are Shranavataha, Shraddhaya, Nityam, right? Granatascha, Swa, Chestitam. That is the point that Prabhupada is saying. So from every purport, personally what I do is I have a notebook and I take maybe 2 or 3 very key points from the purport. There could be a line that Prabhupada has given which really touches my heart. And everyone will find a line in Prabhupada's purport that is significant to your life. Take it out, put it in your notebook and study it. And for the whole day, keep your notebook with you. Because then for the whole day, you can remember what you have read in the morning. Otherwise, in the rush and hurry-burry of the morning, by night, we don't even know which sloka we did. That's why we need a bookmark, isn't it? Because we have no clue where we ended. Because the verse is not with us. You know, you have a bookmark for books because very frankly, you just read a book. But if you have a bookmark for Bhagavatam, that's worrying. Because yesterday only you read it, isn't it? It should be very fresh. And you should know exactly where you're going today. So the bookmark is actually in your heart and your mind. And that's how we understand why Prabhupada makes an emphasis in the purport. Okay? Next slide, Prabhu. Let's take another verse as an example. This is also very beautiful. It's 1:16:16. Saratyapala sadasevana sakya dhautya Virasananugamanástavana pranaman Snigdeshu pandu sujagat pranatim cha Vishnur Bhaktim karoti nipates charanaravinde. Now look at the word to word. Saratya, acceptance of the post of a chariot driver. But look at the ones that I bolded in yellow. Sevana, engaging the mind constantly in the service of the Lord. Then look at Virasana, acceptance of the post of a watchman with a drawn sword at night. Then look at Anugamana, following in the footsteps. And then look at Snigdeshu, unto him who are malleable to the will of the Lord. Okay? Now look at the translation carefully. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna Vishnu, who is universally obeyed. Universally obeyed is found in the word to word as pranati, one who is obeyed. Rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu. In other words, Krishna gave them, he served them so nicely. That is coming from, you can see here, it's coming from, where is it coming from? Sevana. But look at Sevana. Engaging the mind constantly in the service of the Lord. But in the translation, the Lord is serving the devotees. The Lord is serving the devotees. But in the word to word, the devotees are serving the Lord. So you hold on first, okay? Hold on. Now we go down. Rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman. Now look at night watchman, etc. If you just studied the verse and you say Krishna was a night watchman, that's very nice. But if you read the word to word, you'll be able to understand not only was he a night watchman, but he stood with a drawn sword for the whole night. You know, it's one thing to be a security guard with your hands on your lap, you know. That's easy, a lot of security guards do that. But try standing with a watch, with a hand, with a sword in your hand whole night. The sword is unsheathed, of course. But that essence, that beauty, that flavor of what Krishna was doing, we may miss if we don't read the word to word, which is so important. And then you see, night watchmen, according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant. Krishna was obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Now let's go on to the next slide. Because in the purport, we'll understand what the word to word is. Prabhupada says, and look at the last part of it. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word sevana. Now go back to the other one. You see the word sevana there? Engaging the mind constantly in the service of the Lord. This line tells us that Krishna was reciprocating with his devotees. Because the devotees, the Pandavas, were always malleable. And they were always serving Krishna. And therefore Krishna was serving them. So if you don't read Prabhupada's purport carefully, then you will miss, we may miss why the word sevana is about the devotee serving the Lord, when the translation says the Lord is serving the devotees. But Prabhupada puts it all in perspective in his purport by saying that just as the Lord was everything to the unalloyed devotees, see the first line? Just as he was everything to the unalloyed devotees of the Lord, the Pandavas, look at the bottom, were so malleable that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. And by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. Now, do you see how full and rich the whole verse has become? Now it is complete, because you have seen the shloka, you have seen the word to word, you have seen the translation, and Prabhupada's purport has crowned it all completely. Now imagine if you study this way, you can spend a whole day relishing it. You are now not studying it, Prabhus and Matajis, you are now valuing it. You can see it, I can see it on your faces now, right? You're valuing it because suddenly a few lines here and there, but everything is making sense very nicely. Next one, Prabhu. We're coming to the end. Now, this is an example also of how to study Bhagavatam. In this shloka, 3:21:17, Lokamscha lokanugatan pashinscha Hirvasritasche charanarakotavatram Parasparam tvat gunavagasidu Piyusha nirpati niryapita deha dharma. Now, the translation, now I'm looking at the translation. Whenever we want to take notes to understand, supposing we want to give a class, and we want to know how to break down Prabhupada's translation. We know now how to break down the word to word. The translation also requires a breakdown. Look at the way Prabhupada has written. Actually, if you use this formula, you'll find in almost all the parts of Bhagavatam, except for descriptions of planets and everything, you can use this formula to study Bhagavatam. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussion with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. It looks like a very long sentence, but we can break it up this way. Next slide, Prabhu. This is how we break up. Bhagavatam always presents the problem first. Generally, when you study Bhagavatam, you will see that the first premise is always, there is a problem of the material world. And if you look here, it's very clear. The first line, Lokanscha lokanugatan pashumscha. The problem of the world is everyone is following worldly affairs, and the nature of everybody is beastly, and the worldly affairs are putting them in Atapatram, the umbrella. So the solution to coming out of these worldly affairs is to take shelter of his lotus feet, which is like an umbrella. You see? But now, what is the method to reach the solution? The third line gives you that. Parasparam, with one another. Tvat, your guna of qualities, vada, discussion, siddhu. If we all engage in intoxicating discussion, right? If we are discussing topic very, very deeply, we become very intense, intoxicated by it. And that is the method to coming to the point of taking the shelter of the lotus feet. This is why we come together. Parasparam, that is very important. And what will be the result of all of this? Last line. Piyusha, by the nectar. Niryapita, extinguished. And deha dharma. The result is your primary necessities of the body will eventually become extinguished because you have taken this up. So you see, problem, solution, method, result. If you presented this to anybody in a class, everyone will go back very clear about what the verse is. Now you'll not forget the verse, because Always Bhagavatam presents a problem of the world, it presents a solution to it, it tells you how to get to the solution, and it will tell you the result of that solution. Almost 90% of all prayers, 90% of all statements, except like I told you for the descriptions, they will be there. If you go into descriptions and you're looking at Kailash and how Lord Shiva is sitting and you're thinking, who's the problem? Where's the problem in Kailash? You won't find it there. But you'll find it in these very important verses, which are very practical. Next slide, Prabhu. I am giving you a sample of how devotees write notes. I didn't give you mine because I can't read my own notes. But at least I can read this devotee's notes. So sometimes this is the same verse that we were discussing. So I and a devotee, we discussed this at length, and then we wrote notes on this to break it down. And after breaking down, you can see how he's doing it. When I send you the slides, you will see it. Sometimes what I will do as I'm preparing for class is I will write the verse, and below each one in bracket I'll put the meaning, so that we understand the meaning. And then break. But if you can't, next point, Prabhu. If you can't, then the importance of maintaining notes is also found in Bhagavatam. Swayambhuva Manu, right, in 3:22:35, Bhagavatam tells us how he spent his long life. And this is what he did. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged, not never, but ever, engaged in hearing. See the words hearing, word to word, Shrinavataha, hearing. After hearing, what did he do? Dhyayataha, he contemplated. Sometimes we hear something, go downstairs and have prasadam, and we talk about politics. Or we talk about weather. Therefore, there is a disconnect. What you hear, if you don't let it linger, if you don't let it simmer, if you don't contemplate, you lose it. Isn't it true? That's why people tell us to pay attention in class. Because the longer you pay attention, the less you have to go home and scramble last minute for your exams. Because you heard and you contemplated. Now, after he contemplated, he did one thing. Kurvataha. He acted. Now, look at the word to word, acted. And look at what Prabhupada has written. This is the greatness of Prabhupada. Prabhupada has written what acted means. He writes, writing down. So he's telling us, like the very great Acharya that he is, that when you want to act on contemplation, you write it. That's why he's writing it. And then after that, Bruvataha, he could speak. And Prabhupada uses the word chant. So 4 things to do for Bhagavatam. It's so simple, but so practical. That's why note-taking is very important. And last point from Skanda Purana. I really like this point here. If the Bhagavata is not kept in one's house in the Kali Yuga, of what avail are collections of other scriptures by the hundreds and thousands? How can he be considered a Vaishnava who in the Kali Yuga does not keep Bhagavatam in the house? Even if he's a Brahmana, he is lower than an outcast. O Narada, O sage, wherever the Bhagavata is found in Kali Yuga, there Hari goes together with all the demigods. O Muni, that pious soul who daily recites a verse from the Bhagavata reaps the fruits of the 18 Puranas. Given you the shloka and the reference from Skanda Purana. And I think I have one last one. This is a beautiful verse. 5:18-26. Antar Bahischa Kilaloka Palakai Adrishta Rupa Vicharasi Urusvadaha Sa Ishwaraswam Ya Idam Vashenayan Namna Yatadharumayim Narastriyam. See the word that is bolded. The verse is very simple actually. My dear Lord, just as a puppeteer controls his dancing dolls and a husband controls his wife, your Lordship controls all the living entities in the universe. I remember my Guru Maharaj was reading it with us. He said, my dear Lord, just as a puppeteer controls his dancing doll, and then he paused. And a husband controls his wife, he paused longer. He told me, Devaki, Kali Yuga, it could be the other way around. Your Lordship controls all the living entities in the universe, such as the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. Although you are in everyone's heart as the supreme witness and commander, and are outside everyone as well, the so-called leaders of society, communities and countries cannot realize you. Last line. Only those who hear the vibrations of the Vedic mantras can appreciate you. Why is that so? Look to the word to word. Look at the line in yellow. Adrishta Rupaha. Krishna is not seen. Vicharasi, you wonder. Uru, very great. Swanaha, who sounds like Vedic mantras. So if you read that carefully, the reason why the vibrations of the Vedic mantras are so powerful is because Krishna is wandering in the mantras. He is a wanderer. He walks everywhere, isn't it? But he also walks in the mantras. That's why he's unseen, Adrishta Rupa, but he's Vicharasi. He's always walking. So every time you read Bhagavatam, as you chant, Krishna is wandering in the verses. Therefore, Krishna is alive. And Bhagavatam is more alive than even you and I. We are walking dead without Bhagavatam. But Bhagavatam makes us alive. This is the point for us to understand. So, 4 points to take back. Study, reflect, contemplate on the verse, transliteration, translation, and purpose. Act on Srimad Bhagavatam in terms of our behavior. In other words, Bhagavatam should transform us. Whatever that we were before, we should transform to become better devotees in our behavior. The symptom of one who is practicing Bhagavatam is that he is free of fault finding, criticism, and envy. Such a Vaishnava has no time for fault finding, no time for criticism, and he's not envious of anyone. If we are really relishing Bhagavatam, this will be naturally coming in our own sadhachara also. And last point, there is a vast difference between a scholar of Bhagavatam and a practitioner of Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to practice and value Bhagavatam and appreciate Bhagavatam, but he did not want us to become pandits. So this is very important. Whatever that we are discussing, it is good, but it must translate ultimately in how we treat devotees, how we serve the Lord, how we speak to each other, and how we grow this beautiful movement actually. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Jai. Are there any questions? Any realizations? Achinta Chaitanya, feel free to throw in your realizations also. Yes, Mother. We'll have 5 minutes. Is that okay, Prabhu? 5 minutes? Are we all right? Yeah.